Okay, gang, today's video is going to be about how I ballast track and a couple of questions that I had about ballasting Kato track and turnouts. And I hope I'm covering everything, but I'm showing you all the tools and all the things that I know that I have to make it work, and get the results that I get. I'm also going to talk about some folks that stop by here. I don't do a lot of videos like that, but once you listen to it, maybe you could pray for these folks. They need all the help and support that they can get. But nice people, and I'll get into that. Hey everybody, Mike Fifer. Today we're going to do, I've had guys asking me about how I ballast and how I do the ballasting on Kato unitrack, which I'll probably just put a link in because I already have a video on that. But I'll show you guys exactly how I'm doing this here. But really this is kind of a special video. I don't do a lot of special videos, but I think I need to do this one. About a month or so ago, a little under a month or so ago, I had a couple people, I had a person call me, and he wanted to stop here and look at the layout. They were passing through town, and they gave me advance notice. We were going to be free, and I said, okay. What I wasn't expecting them to pull up in a motorhome and have Larry be in such bad shape. His wife, Liz, I believe is her name, Liz, and I'm sorry, Liz, or I'm sorry if I got this wrong, and Liz, but we spent almost a half a day here talking trains, talking cars, talking period, and I don't really know all the physical problems that Larry's going through, but what I do know is it would appear and seem to be that he does not have a whole lot of time left. What they were trying to do is they live in Nevada, and they had bought a motorhome, and they were trying to make a trip back to see his 100-year-old mother, I think for her birthday. And they didn't even know whether they would make that, but it turned out they did. But I'm going to try and read this. I have a little trouble with, she has beautiful handwriting, in cursive handwriting, but I have trouble reading it. But it said, thank you for taking the time out of your day to allow Larry and me to visit and see your layout, and Lisa. It had been a part of Larry's bucket list on what he thought maybe a last trip for him. He has enjoyed your YouTube videos and even roped me into watching some. Says you have some very interesting hobbies. Says we made it to Iowa to see his 100-year-old mom and many other family members and friends. The trip home was a little bit concerning. I took him to our hospital in St. Glenn, Utah, I believe it is. I don't know. And where he spent a week before getting back home. He is doing better again and back in his favorite chair watching you. Thank you, and thanks for being there. Blessings to you and your family, Liz. And Larry, I thank you for thinking that I'm important enough that it's something that you enjoyed and wanted to do. And I thank you guys for stopping. You know, every now and then, you know, you get people that stop and surprise you, and Larry surprised me. And Liz is she's a gem of a lady. Um, we stood in here and talked in the air conditioning for a long, long time. Larry sat in the chair and he was real comfortable there, and he enjoyed watching the trains go around and seeing the layout, and just really, really nice people. And Larry, I hope you hang in there for a long time, as long as you want to hang in there. I know that you're not doing well. I know that it's hard for you to get around. I know that you were probably more than ecstatic to see your mom and your family members and stuff. But I wanted to thank you guys for inserting yourself into my life. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you hang in there as long as you can, and it was good to see you guys, and thank you so much for the nice letter. Now we'll try and get on with the ballasting, the track ballasting, or the track ballasting and the turnout information that I've had some questions on. Okay, as you guys can see in this picture, you can see that maybe you can see that the scenery is glued right in here, coming back, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. And you can see that I have dumped the ballast into the track over here. I did that last night. I haven't had a chance to smooth it out real well. This part over here has been smoothed out and is ready to have water mix and glue applied. But I'll tell you about a few things I had to do in advance of getting even to this stage. And first, let me show you the tools I'm using. Okay, I said it before. This is the ballast I'm using. It's Arizona Rock and Mineral, and it's Winslow Santa Fe Mauve. It's number 5001. I got 3 bags of it, and it would appear that probably 2 bags of it are going to do what I'm doing here, because I'm putting it on relatively thin since I don't have sub road bed under it. But let me show you what the other tools are. This is my fan brush. When I get done, the fan brush is just lightly pulled across the top of the rail to kind of smooth out the ballast. Another very important tool, a small piece of folded 600 grit sandpaper. I'll show you what that's for later. And in my case here on this foam, masking tape. In the cleanup process, I prefer one of these metal brushes. It's a fine bristle metal brush. Looks kind of gross and ugly, but it does get all the ballast and glue out from between the points and out of the guide rails and stuff. Another thing I need in my particular application is a nice pair of tweezers. I happen to have these, and I'll show you what those are for. And you guys probably before have seen my smoothing tool. I still use this toothbrush to brush my teeth. No, I really don't. No, I bent this toothbrush. I heated it up with a heat gun, bent it, so kind of at a, I don't know, whatever angle that is. Whatever angle that is. But it works real well because it's the exact width of the rail and the outside ties. And if you keep it in this position right here and drag it, you can see that, I'll have to go back and fix this, but you can see that it does a pretty good job of wiping it off the edge of the rail. I'm trying to do this in my camera. Anyway, that's the other tool I use. And of all the other things I have is this very special butter container that I put the ballast in, and my favorite and most important tool, a baby feeding spoon. And we'll get to how all this works here in just a minute. I'm going to try and figure out how to start this. I think what I'll do first is explain to you what my tweezers are for. Okay, what the masking tape and the tweezers are for. And I'm just going to show you. You can see that there's a hole in the foam here. This particular hole does not go all the way through. This was from the these little tiny holes right here are from the Woodland Scenics foam pins that I was holding the track down with. We don't need to worry about those too much, but I do have a bigger hole here and a bigger hole down this way a little bit. But I'll show you what this is for. And I'm going to get up on a stool here and so I can just see in the camera. And of course, some of these holes like this one, I could have just taped up beforehand. But we're going to pretend like this hole right here was made to drop a wire down through. And I don't really have one here handy. They're all down here at the other end to show you. So we're just going to pretend like this was one of the holes on the side, on either side here, that we ran wires down through with. But what I do is I tear up a little piece of masking tape and I just crumple it together. It's hard to do this, but I just crumple it together here. And just so all my ballast doesn't fall away, I shove that down into the hole, just kind of crumpled up. And then I'll get another piece and I'll crumple it up. And I'm going to make a little bit bigger piece just because we have a bigger hole here. But you know, you'll get the idea of what this is for. And I'll take this piece and I'll put it here at the hole and just start taking my tweezers and shoving it down into the hole. And because this is foam, you can see that it fills that hole. Now, this little hole right here is only about an inch deep, maybe 2 inches deep, but it'll start filling up with ballast once I start putting ballast there. But obviously, if I had put ballast here and that hole went all the way through the bottom of the foam, our ballast would start leaking away and we'd wind up with big old gaps in the back, and we'd never be able to fill the hole. So this is the tape and the tweezer here is nothing more than a device or a way to get pieces of masking tape down in those particular holes. Another thing I'd like to point out is another thing I use masking tape for, and I have some really crappy masking tape that doesn't tear properly. I think it's had something on it at one time. But I'm going to reach around the camera here and reach in front of you guys. When I have an edge like this and there's nothing under this plaster, and this plaster's been here for a long time, what we want to do is we want to put a piece of this masking tape right up against the edge of the track and put it on top of the plaster cloth, because this keeps our ballast and our glue from running off the edge here and down on the floor. By the way, when you're doing this on foam, and because you do have so many holes in the foam, and if you have carpet on the floor like I do, and I didn't do it, but I would recommend putting newspaper or plastic cloth or something down on the floor, because some of your glue eventually is going to run out anyway. Now I'm going to back the camera, hopefully going to back the camera up here, and I'm going to apply some ballast to this specific little area here. Okay, so what I do, I have my container, I fill up a little bit, not all the way up, fill my spoon up about level, and I just start somewhere, and I'm going to start here because this is where you guys are, and I start just going along the edge and kind of running the spoon back and forth. And I think I'm almost out of your view frame. and you can see that I just put not a whole lot, but a little bit. And I do the same thing on the other side, and I just kind of work this back and forth. And you can see here that I have a big gap between the bottom, well, maybe you can't, but there's a big gap between the bottom of the track and where the track actually is, because there's a slope down on the end of the foam here, that sheet. But we're just going to fill that with ballast like it wasn't even there. It wastes a little ballast, but it's the easiest way. Now, the center of the track, I don't put a whole lot in there simply because we're going to push some of it around, okay? So if you look, that's about, just happens to be what I got in there, okay? Now, my brush. I hope you guys can see this. You can see the pile that I have right here. I'm going to start at that pile. I'm going to put the two outer edges of the toothbrush over the outside edge of the track, and I'm just going to pull the toothbrush along. Then I'm going to turn the toothbrush around, go back the other way, and going to go back the other way again. And you can go back as many times as you want. You can see that I'm lacking a little bit right where we put the piece of tape. So I'm just going to take a pinch in my fingers, and I'm going to add it there. And we're going to do the same thing. I don't like running it forward. I actually like pulling it backwards. We're just going to run this back and forth on here a couple more times, just because it will take some of that ballast and bring it into the ties that don't have much. We still have a little vacant spot right in here. Now, this was if I was working for perfection. I don't work for perfection. What I work for is realism. And even on the real railroads, in these older tracks, you will find that the ballast is not necessarily always equal and even. It usually is on the main line because I spend a lot of time on it, but not a lot here. Now, on my fan brush, I hold my fan brush out here very lightly, just so I kind of let it droop, okay? And I lay it on top of the track with the brush, with the handle centered on the track, and I just drag it along. No pressure on it whatsoever. None. I did not put any pressure on that, just the weight of the brush itself, and you can see how that's smoothed out. Sometimes you get a little edge on it, sometimes you don't. It really doesn't matter because in most cases on this outside edge, you're going to have foliage and dirt coming up to it anyway. But you can see that the ballast there is relatively evenly spread. That's how I do my ballast. And everything, all this ballast you see is just a continuation of that. So I hope that clarifies that. Now I'm going to go back over here on the other side and show you what it looks like when the fan brush doesn't want to really play exactly right. Now in this shot here, I'll show you a couple of things. You notice that my edges are not perfect, and I'm going to drag this for you one more time here. But you can see it does a good job of evening it out. And when you put the water in there, it tends to level it out a little more. When I say level it out, this center section, it tends to level out a little more. And in the places where it's low here, you may want to put some grass or something in there. But what I'm referring to is this edge out here. You know, I don't really want to mess with this edge anymore, because the more I mess with it, the more screwed up it's going to get. And I don't want to do that. So just leave it like that, and if you need to cut that back for a structure, which I will need to do right in this area right here, you do it after it's in there, okay? It's okay just like this. And you can certainly put scenery material up over the edge of that, you know. you put this on, you put your next scenery level up over that to whatever you want it to look like. Now, one thing I'll point out is this Arizona rock, even though it's supposedly sifted, you can see that rock right there. That was in the bag, okay? So if you want to, you can sift it out in advance. I prefer not to do that. I just put it on. I don't worry about that kind of stuff. But what I do worry about is not having any in the middle of the rails anywhere where it's going to lift the wheels off the rail, okay? So there's a little bit of extra right in there. And that's about it. Let me, I just want to show you down here where I'm doing a turnout, okay? Okay, another thing I don't do is worry too much about sticking the points. And I'll explain that in a minute. But try and be sparing with the ballast in where the actual points move back and forth. And as you can see here, if I take this and wipe it back and forth with my fan brush a little bit, you can see that yes, we have some in there, but we don't have an exorbitant amount. You can see, let me get that. You can see that I brushed some out of the point area here. The other point's not going to get any in it. And I think you can see back this way a little bit. We're going to go back this way. And we're going to put some over on the, I don't know, there's not much of this in the camera. But anyway, what I'm trying to do is just get rid of anything that's towards the point that I don't want to be towards the point. And that's why I don't put very much ballast, excuse me, like back in here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to sweep this ballast back in here to fill that in, okay? And I would likely do that with a better tool. And a better tool is my toothbrush. So I'm going to go along very slowly, and you can see that it's cleaning that up nicely. Now, if I have too much, and let me swing this around just a little bit, I sweep to the side. And it just throws it out over the edge. Then I go back, and I go down from the point area, sweeping back away from the point, through the frog, and through the guardrail here, making sure there's not a lot down in there. There can be some, and I'll show you how to get rid of that later. And I just keep sweeping backwards. Until I get the fill I want. And that's pretty good fill right there. So now you can see that we have the rail back from the points and at the points, and at this point right here, at this point right here, some of this is glued here. It was glued previously, but I think I'm going to put a little bit over the top of that. I mean, that was just kind of a temporary thing. So we're just going to add just a tiny bit here just to even it up a little bit. And once again, sweep, sweep, sweep. Sweep the outside rail here until you get it like you want it. And once you get it like you want it, then it's a matter of taking a, hang on, let me back up here. This is my spray bottle. I got it at dollar store or somewhere. It's not a very good one. It keeps popping off up here at the top. The threads aren't very good on it, but it has a nice spray to it. It has a nice light spray to it. And what I do is I try and make it a very misty spray. And I can't really, well, I can mist. Let me mist some of this out here for you. And all of this is loose, okay? The idea is not to move the ballast that you're doing, okay? But you want to get it nice and soaking wet. And we're not going to do anything with that right now because I'm not ready to glue that. But I can show you what I would be doing. I'd be sticking this eyedropper into my, oops, still got some in it. I'd be sticking this eyedropper into my scenic cement, and I would be first laying it at an angle and depositing that right down the center of the track. Same thing here, right down the center of the track, okay? On this Code 55 Pico, because the track's embedded in the tie strip, it doesn't bleed out to the sides very well. So my second pass, I would lightly, very lightly squeeze this or let it drip and just run it along the outside edge of the rail like so. And on the inside edge of the rail like so. Okay? And that'll get glue on the center and either side. And you just put that on until you're sure that you've got glue on everything. And once you get done, it's like it is over here to my right. It's hard as a rock, and it's where you want it. And if you need to change anything or lift any track or whatever, just wet that down with hot water, and it'll dissolve that up, and you can clean up the track and deposit it somewhere else. The ballast you never can save. But that's it for how I apply ballast. Now, let me show you how I clean the points. Okay, I'll show you how I clean the points, but you're probably going to have a question about the ballast that's down in here. It does not need to be removed from there, simply because when I throw this, it misses that ballast. The outer rail here misses that ballast, okay? So you don't really have to worry about it. Now, you're going to say, well, when you put the glue on there, it's going to stick this throw bar down. Yes, it is. But before it dries completely, I go in here and I throw the bar back and forth about 10 or 15 or 20 times. Just keep doing this number to it. And before the glue actually gets hard. And what that does is it seems to chase some of the glue away. Besides that, the scenic cement does not stick to the type of plastic that this bottom of this is made out of. So, I'm not telling you to put a bunch of glue on there, just put the bare minimum around the point area. But it's going to go up in between the rails. It's going to wick up in between the rails here, okay? But it will not totally stick unless you put it on there super heavy. It will not stick the throw bar. You can unstick the throw bar, okay? Once you get the throw bar unstuck, is make sure your power's off, and this is where my little wire brush comes in. And I have 2 of these. And I think Micromark sells these. We don't have them, but Micromark sells them. I put it in there at a little bit of an angle, and I just scrub. And I scrub the side, which is scrubbing the side of the point rail right here. Then I turn it at a 45 the other direction and scrub the other side. And what that does is it scrubs the inside of the actual rail over here itself. And you do that until you don't get any obstruction when you throw these. Let me get rid of that. When you throw these points, the point rail goes all the way over to the side, all the way over to the side. This particular one right here stuck on me. Hold on one second. I'm reaching for a tool. It stuck on me and I couldn't get it to go all the way over. What I had to do is go in here with my tweezer and just gently scrape out a little bit of the ballast material. And then what I did is I actually poked a hole in the foam and just pushed that ballast material down in there to get rid of it. But it allowed me to get the point to move all the way left and right. Now, that gets the dirt out of there. And then I also use this to clean out the point rails and the guard rails, okay? And it'll go down in the guardrail and get all the ballast. Well, for the most part, all the ballast out. If you need to get more ballast out, you can always take something sharp, go down through it, and get it out of there, okay? There's any number of ways to get it out, but you got to take the time to do that. And another thing you might notice in this picture is there's some ballast right here up against the rail. But what I do is I go in there and I do exactly that right there, and that's scrape it off. Now, that leaves all this junk here. So when you get done cleaning all of this up, take a vacuum cleaner and go over it. And if the vacuum cleaner sucks up any of the ballast you put down, you didn't use enough glue. So you're going to have to do it again. Okay, so we're that far. We've got all the inner and outer rails clean. And you'll know when you take a train through here if there's stuff on the inside. And if there is, even your fingernail takes that off sometimes. Okay, so now we've got this far, but we're counting on the switch to make connection so that it gets power where we need the power to go. If that doesn't happen, this is where your little piece of folded 600 grit sandpaper comes in. You put it in between the point rail and the outer rail. I push it to that side, and I just run this thing in back and forth in there with some pressure pointing away from my index finger. I push on that a little bit, put some pressure on that, and sand that, because that laps the two rails into each other so that when you flip that over to that side, it should make contact. If it does not, what I've also done before is I got a piece of glue there. Let me get that out of there. I've also taken and twisted the outer edge of this point a little bit to the outside. You can see how I'm bending it to the outside. That will make it make a more solid contact over there, okay? And you just keep farting with that until you get conductivity from here to there. And that's basically it on how I do it. I don't think I have forgotten anything. I'll show you what you wind up with over here real quick. Okay, what you wind up with is a ballast job like this. And of course this is directly on foam, but it's okay. I use two types of cleaners to clean the rail. This is a basic Bright Boy of some type, whatever you can find. I think this one happens to be a micro engineering piece. This is one of the Woodland Scenics track cleaning bars that you buy. This one's cut in half. But I basically go over the top of the rails with the harder one first, or the more abrasive one. Once I get done with that, I go back and I go over it with the black one, which when you do it, you can feel that it's a much lighter one. And that will take all the paint and glue off the top. And then what you wind up with is, hold on, a track that runs like this. I hope that helps you all out. I'm going to show you one more thing about Ballasting Kato track, because I had a guy ask, and it's going to be real brief because it's very simple. And basically what I do is the same thing. It just takes a lot more ballast as I run it along the top here until I get near the throw bar for the turnout. And then I slack it down, because I can always put some more in there with my fingers. And I start putting the ballast in until it's just about midway between the hole and where the throw bar is and your base. And then I start putting it back up high again and go along the track again. Of course, the other side doesn't have a throw bar, so you can do the whole entire other side. You can do the Y part of it. You can do all the rest of the turnout. I do not ballast in the middle of my Kato track, so that is not an issue, okay? But you want to minimize the amount of material that you get into that hole. If you should happen, and there's guys that'll tape that off, and you could tape it off. You could certainly tape it off. That would be fine. I don't. what I have found is that you can drop a certain amount of material into that, and all the mechanism is up off the bottom of this. So usually it'll be a little bit gritty, or it might even be stuck. But there again, you can unstick it. And once you unstick it, the stickiness part of it was localized to this area, and I've never had it affect any of the turnouts. Obviously, you want to try not to do that. If you seem to get some in there and it won't move, take your little needle nose pliers, go down in there and just gently scrape that stuff. Then take your vacuum cleaner hose and hold it right over that hole. And you'll take as much loose stuff as possible. In fact, that might not be a bad idea in most cases. But suck as much of that stuff out of there as you can. But if you've got loose stuff in there with no glue on it, sliding this back and forth will push all that out of the way, and that stuff will not be a problem. There's empty space in there, okay? So it'll just push that material out of the way. I would still recommend putting the vacuum cleaner over it and sucking it out after you've glued and everything is dry there. And the same thing applies here. Once you put the glue here, operate this back and forth. Once the glue is down, I try to not glue a whole bunch. You just have to concentrate on not getting too much ballast and too much glue in this entire area right here. So that's where we are with ballasting. You can see that I have a lot of it left to do here. So I think I'm going to wrap this up so I can do some of that. Well, I hope that video on the ballasting technique that I use. It's been a while since I've done it on raw track like that, but I'm getting back into the swing of it, and the results seem to be pretty good. So that's what I'm going to go with, and I hope that it works for you. And I thank you guys for stopping by. And like I say, if you would pray for Larry and Liz, I would certainly appreciate that. They were sweet people. Thanks for watching, and as usual, look at the vintage page. See, you thought you were going to trick me, but you didn't.